Jacob "Buck" Lowe was the youngest hunter on Mountain Monsters, the fan favorite who learned everything from the legendary Trapper. But when the cameras stopped rolling and Trapper died, Buck's life took a turn nobody saw coming. What happened next reveals the dark reality of what happens to reality TV stars after the fame disappears. Tonight, we're uncovering the truth about Buck's life after Mountain Monsters, and it's not what you think. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. In 2013, a young hunter from the heart of West Virginia stepped into the spotlight and changed the face of cryptid hunting on television forever. Jacob "Buck" Lowe joined the cast of Mountain Monsters as one of the original AIMS team members and immediately stood out for one crucial reason. He was the youngest member of the crew by a significant margin, while the rest of the team consisted of grizzled, weathered Appalachian veterans who had spent decades tracking through those ancient mountains. Buck brought youthful energy, raw enthusiasm, and a hunger to prove himself that viewers found instantly compelling. His personality created a perfect contrast with the older hunters. Where they were cautious and methodical, Buck was impulsive and eager. Where they relied on decades of experience, Buck relied on instinct and adrenaline, and fans absolutely loved him for it. He became the relatable entry point for younger audiences, the guy who asked the questions viewers were thinking, who reacted with genuine excitement when something unexplainable happened in the darkness. But behind the scenes, the reality of filming Mountain Monsters was far more grueling than most viewers ever realized. The shooting schedule was absolutely brutal, with the team often spending entire nights in freezing temperatures, hiking through treacherous terrain, setting elaborate traps, and staging dramatic confrontations with creatures that may or may not have actually been there. Like many reality shows, there was constant pressure to deliver compelling television, to create moments that would keep audiences coming back week after week. For Buck, being the youngest meant working twice as hard to earn respect, to prove he belonged among these legendary hunters, to show he wasn't just the kid who got lucky with a TV contract. The physical toll, the mental exhaustion, the strange liminal space between reality and performance that defines all reality television. Buck was living it all while still in his 20s, and the cracks were already beginning to form beneath the surface, even if nobody could see them yet. One of the most compelling dynamics on Mountain Monsters was the relationship between Buck and the team's legendary leader, John "Trapper" Tice. For many fans watching at home, Buck felt like the spiritual son of Trapper on screen, the younger hunter learning directly from an old-school Appalachian legend who had spent his entire life in those mountains. Trapper wasn't just the team leader. He was a father figure, a mentor, a living embodiment of Appalachian hunting culture and folklore traditions passed down through generations. And Buck absorbed everything Trapper had to teach: the way he tracked, the way he read signs in the forest, the way he approached the unknown with respect rather than just bravado. Their on-screen chemistry became one of the show's most powerful elements. Trapper would bark orders and Buck would execute them without hesitation. Trapper would share wisdom about the mountains and Buck would listen with genuine reverence. It created a narrative arc that felt authentic, even within the sometimes questionable reality TV framework. Viewers watched Buck grow from an eager young hunter into a more seasoned tracker under Trapper's guidance. But it's crucial to clarify something that has caused confusion among fans over the years. Trapper and Buck were not related by blood. They were not father and son in any biological sense. Their relationship was purely professional and mentorship-based, forged through years of working together in extremely challenging conditions. However, the bond they developed was clearly deep and meaningful, transcending typical co-worker relationships. For Buck, Trapper represented everything he aspired to become as a hunter and as a man. The respect was visible in every interaction, every conversation, every moment they shared on screen. And when Trapper's health began to decline in later seasons, that bond would be tested in ways that neither of them could have anticipated. The foundation of Buck's entire experience on Mountain Monsters was built on Trapper's leadership, and when that foundation began to crumble, everything else would start falling apart as well. As Mountain Monsters progressed through its later seasons, viewers began noticing something troubling. Trapper's appearances became less frequent, his energy noticeably diminished, his usual commanding presence fading gradually. Behind the scenes, the truth was becoming unavoidable. Trapper was dealing with serious health issues that were progressively limiting his ability to participate in the grueling filming schedule. The show tried to work around his declining condition, giving him less physically demanding roles, allowing him more rest between shoots, but the reality was clear to everyone involved. The man who had been the heart and soul of AIMS was slowly slipping away. Then in December 2019, the news that everyone had been dreading finally came. John Trapper Tice passed away, leaving an enormous void in the show, in the team, and in the hearts of fans who had followed his adventures for years. The announcement devastated the Mountain Monsters community. Tributes poured in from around the world. Fellow cast members shared emotional statements about losing their friend, their leader, their brother in the woods. But for Buck specifically, losing Trapper hit differently. While we can only speculate about the depth of his personal grief, it seems almost certain that this wasn't just a TV moment for him. This was the loss of a mentor who had shaped his entire adult life, who had taught him not just how to hunt, but how to carry himself as an Appalachian man. For Buck, who had spent years in those dark woods by Trapper's side, learning his methods, absorbing his wisdom, building a relationship that went far beyond scripted television, that loss was almost certainly deeply personal and profoundly painful. Grief has a way of amplifying every other struggle in a person's life, and for someone already navigating the unstable world of reality television, the death of Trapper likely represented more than just losing a colleague. It meant losing the anchor that had kept everything together, the steady presence that had made all the chaos and uncertainty worthwhile. Mountain Monsters ran for 8 seasons, building a dedicated cult following of cryptid enthusiasts, Appalachian culture fans, and people who simply enjoyed watching a group of colorful characters hunt impossible creatures through dark forests. But like many reality shows, it ended somewhat abruptly in 2020, leaving viewers with unresolved cliffhangers and unanswered questions about the team's ultimate fate. For the cast members, the sudden ending meant facing an uncertain future. The regular paychecks stopped. The visibility disappeared. The structure that had defined their lives for years simply vanished overnight. But Buck wasn't ready to let the legacy die. In late 2024 and into 2025, something unexpected happened. Buck, along with fellow AIMS members Huckleberry and Wild Bill, launched a new project that represented both a continuation and a reinvention. They created Sons of Appalachia, a YouTube-based series that would continue the cryptid hunting tradition while explicitly honoring Trapper's memory and the methods he had taught them. This wasn't a major network production with significant budgets and guaranteed viewership. This was 3 hunters with cameras, trying to keep the dream alive through sheer determination and passion for what they did. Sons of Appalachia represented a very different kind of challenge. Instead of fighting creatures in the woods, they were now fighting algorithms, competing for attention in an oversaturated digital landscape, trying to build an audience one video at a time. The production values were lower, the resources were limited, but the authenticity was arguably higher than it had ever been on cable television. For Buck, this new chapter meant taking control of his own narrative, steering his own career, and ensuring that everything Trapper had taught him wouldn't be forgotten. It was both inspiring and somewhat tragic. Here was a man who had achieved legitimate television fame, now reduced to scraping for views on YouTube just to continue doing what he loved. The transition from cable star to digital creator is a journey many have taken, but few talk about how difficult and humbling that fall can actually be. For many reality TV hunters in Appalachia, life after the cameras stop rolling can turn dark incredibly fast. This is a pattern we've seen repeated across countless shows and countless lives. Brief fame that feels enormous in the moment. Small paychecks that seem significant until they stop coming. No residuals, no royalties, no financial safety net for when the show ends. And then reality hits with brutal force. Bills that don't care about your television credits. Health issues that don't wait for your next opportunity. Mental health struggles that intensify in the silence after years of constant production chaos. And absolutely no support system from the networks that profited from your labor and your image. The entertainment industry has a long, documented history of chewing up working-class participants and spitting them out once their usefulness expires. This is especially true in reality television, where participants often lack the contracts, protections, and representation that scripted actors receive. They're not considered talent in the traditional sense. They're considered content, raw material to be extracted and exploited until the audience loses interest. For someone like Buck, coming from a small Appalachian community where opportunities are already limited, the whiplash of sudden fame followed by sudden obscurity can be psychologically devastating. We've seen this pattern over and over. The reality star who ends up broke, addicted, homeless, forgotten. The person who was on television one year and in a county jail the next. The familiar face who quietly disappears and nobody thinks to ask what happened to them. There is absolutely no public record that Jacob Lowe has gone through arrests, overdoses, or homelessness. But if he had, it would fit a well-known and well-documented pattern for reality TV's forgotten stars, particularly those from economically disadvantaged regions who were never given the tools or support to navigate sudden visibility and its inevitable disappearance. What we actually know about Jacob "Buck" Lowe's personal life is relatively limited, which is probably exactly how he prefers it. The documented facts paint a picture of a man deeply rooted in his Appalachian heritage. He's originally from West Virginia, born and raised in the mountains that would later become his television hunting grounds. His background before Mountain Monsters involved hunting and fishing, traditional Appalachian outdoor skills passed down through generations of mountain families. These weren't hobbies for Buck. They were survival skills, cultural practices, a way of life that connected him to the land and to his ancestors. In 2018, during the height of Mountain Monsters' popularity, Buck married Christine Stein, marking a significant personal milestone amid the chaos of reality television production. Marriage itself is challenging under normal circumstances, but balancing a marriage with the demands of a public persona and dangerous night shoots in the woods creates pressures that most couples never have to face. The constant travel, the physical danger, the strange schedule, the public scrutiny, the financial uncertainty. These are stressors that can destroy even the strongest relationships. Beyond these basic biographical facts, Buck has maintained relative privacy about his personal life, which makes sense given the invasive nature of reality television. He's not active on social media in the way many reality stars are, constantly sharing personal details and private moments. He's kept his family life, his struggles, his triumphs largely away from public view, and that restraint deserves respect. What we can say with certainty is that Buck represents a particular type of Appalachian man: tough, resourceful, connected to tradition, suspicious of outsiders, fiercely loyal to his community. These qualities made him compelling television, but they also make him someone who likely struggles with the performative aspects of modern fame. The constant need to share, to engage, to commodify every aspect of your life for public consumption. For someone raised in mountain culture where privacy and self-reliance are deeply valued, the demands of reality television and digital content creation probably feel fundamentally unnatural and exhausting. Here's where we need to be absolutely clear and honest about the limits of what can be verified about Buck's life. There is no verified public information that Jacob "Buck" Lowe spiraled into addiction after Mountain Monsters ended. There are no credible reports that he lived in his truck, homeless and desperate. There are no documented stays in recovery housing or rehabilitation facilities. These narrative elements, while they fit common patterns for reality television participants, are not confirmed aspects of Buck's actual life story and should not be presented or accepted as biographical fact. This distinction matters enormously. It's easy to construct a tragic narrative that feels plausible, that aligns with what we know happens to many people in similar circumstances, that creates compelling content. But plausibility is not the same as truth, and patterns are not the same as individual experience. Buck deserves to have his actual story told, not a fictionalized version that serves a predetermined narrative arc. What is absolutely real, however, is the environment Buck exists within. Appalachia's devastating opioid crisis is well documented and has destroyed countless lives across the region. The economic stress facing working-class communities throughout West Virginia and surrounding states is severe and worsening. The way reality television fame can magnify every existing crack in a person's life, turning manageable problems into catastrophic failures, is proven across countless examples. So while we don't know Buck's specific struggles, we know the context he's operating within is brutal. We know the pressures he's facing are real. We know that even if he's avoided the worst outcomes, he's almost certainly fought battles that the public will never see or understand. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Buck's relative privacy might indicate he's handling everything well, or it might indicate he's struggling privately. We simply don't know, and we shouldn't pretend we do. So what actually happened to Jacob "Buck" Lowe after Mountain Monsters? The documented facts tell a story that's less sensational, but perhaps more genuinely interesting than manufactured tragedy. Buck remained a main cast member through all 8 seasons of the show, never getting fired, never quitting, never disappearing mysteriously. He was there from the beginning in 2013 until the show's conclusion in 2020, a 7-year run that represents genuine consistency and professional commitment in the notoriously unstable world of reality television. Then, after a period of relative quiet following the show's cancellation, Buck resurfaced publicly as one of the 3 core members of Sons of Appalachia. Alongside Huckleberry and Wild Bill, he's now leading a new cryptid hunting series that launched in 2025, explicitly designed to continue Trapper's legacy and keep Appalachian monster hunting traditions alive for a new generation of viewers. In one sense, what happened to Buck is tragic, but in a different way than typical reality TV horror stories. This is the tragedy of diminishment rather than destruction. A beloved cable television star, someone who appeared in millions of homes, who had genuine fame and recognition, now reduced to fighting YouTube algorithms just to stay visible, trading network production budgets for whatever equipment they can afford, building audiences one subscriber at a time instead of inheriting established viewership. This is the reality for most television personalities once their show ends. The industry moves on instantly, viewers forget quickly, and yesterday's star becomes today's struggling content creator, desperately trying to remain relevant in an attention economy that has already moved past them. But there's also something admirable and resilient in Buck's journey. He didn't give up. He didn't fade away quietly. He didn't let Trapper's death or the show's cancellation end his connection to the work he clearly loves. He adapted, evolved, and found a new path forward, even if that path is harder and less glamorous than what came before. We don't know every detail of Jacob Buck Lowe's private life, and we shouldn't pretend we do. Speculation presented as fact helps no one and disrespects the actual human being behind the television character. But his journey from small-town hunter to cable TV star and then to YouTube survivor sits on top of a much bigger, darker story about what reality television does to people once the cameras go dark. The real monsters aren't cryptids hiding in Appalachian forests. The real monsters are systemic, addiction that preys on economically devastated communities, grief that compounds when you lose mentors and father figures, guilt over not living up to expectations, not capitalizing on opportunities, not becoming what everyone said you could be. The entertainment industry's exploitation of working-class people for profit without providing long-term support. Buck's story, whatever its specific details, represents thousands of similar stories. Reality TV participants used and discarded. Appalachian communities strip-mined for content the same way they've been strip-mined for coal. People whose humanity gets reduced to narrative arcs and clickable content. If there's a lesson here, it's about maintaining skepticism toward the reality television industry's promises and practices. It's about recognizing that every person we see on screen is a complete human being with struggles we'll never fully understand. It's about demanding better treatment and support for the people who create the content we consume. And it's about remembering that when we ask what happened to someone, we're asking about a real life, not just a story. Buck Lowe has hunted the Appalachian Mountains for 30 years, tracked every animal in West Virginia: bear, deer, cougar. He grew up hearing his grandfather's stories about something else in those woods, something that walks on 2 legs, something 9 feet tall. Buck respected the stories but never truly believed. Until October 2023 in the Tigard Valley. 20 feet away from him stood a creature covered in dark hair, 9 feet tall, looking directly at him with eyes that reflected his flashlight. Bigfoot was real, and Buck's reaction was captured on camera. Subscribe because what happened next will give you chills. His voice shaking, hands trembling, pure fear documented. The thermal cameras captured it too. A massive heat signature right where Buck said, "This isn't acting. This is genuine terror." This is Buck Lowe face to face with Bigfoot, and his reaction changes everything. The Tigard Valley sits deep in Randolph County, West Virginia, in the heart of Appalachian territory. Dense forest covers steep terrain for miles. The nearest town is 40 minutes away on winding mountain roads. Locals call one particular area the Dark Hollow because sunlight barely penetrates the thick canopy. This region has a history. Native American legends speak of wild men living in these mountains. Sightings date back to the 1800s when settlers first moved through the area. In September 2023, multiple recent reports reached local authorities. Hunters discovered massive footprints near creek beds. A local farmer named Dale Henderson lost 3 calves in 1 week, killed in an unusual manner that didn't match bear or cougar attacks. The tracks found near his property measured 18 inches long. Tree structures appeared overnight, branches and logs arranged in deliberate patterns that weren't natural. Campers reported strange vocalizations echoing through the valley at night, deep guttural sounds that didn't match any known animal. Dale Henderson contacted the Ames team directly. "Something's out here and it ain't natural," he told Buck over the phone. Dale described seeing a large figure crossing his field at dusk, moving upright on two legs. He estimated the height at 8 to 9 feet. It was covered in dark hair and moved with surprising speed despite its massive size. Two other locals confirmed similar sightings in the same area within the past month. Buck Lowe studied the reports carefully. He examined topographical maps of the region, identifying likely travel corridors for a large creature, water sources where it might drink, caves and rock overhangs that could provide shelter. Buck's 30 years of tracking experience told him this was textbook Bigfoot territory. Dense cover, multiple water sources, abundant food, and minimal human presence. The team assembled for the investigation. Buck would lead as team leader, the role he took after Trapper's passing. Wild Bill served as second in command. Huckleberry handled tech and thermal imaging equipment. Jeff Headley provided historical research. Willie McQuillian filmed everything. They brought full equipment, thermal imaging cameras, night vision, audio recorders, and trail cameras. The plan was straightforward. Split into two groups for better coverage. Buck, Wild Bill, and Willie would take the North Ridge. Huckleberry and Jeff would approach from the South Valley. They'd coordinate via radio, set up thermal monitoring stations, and use calls to elicit responses from any creatures in the area. The rendezvous point was base camp by midnight. October weather provided perfect conditions. Temperature in the 40s, clear sky, nearly full moon. Good visibility, but cold enough to keep animals active. Buck felt optimistic as they geared up. "If it's out here, we'll find it tonight." At 7:30 p.m., the teams split at the trailhead. Buck's group headed north into dense forest, climbing the steep ridgeline. Huckleberry's team took the lower valley route. Radio check confirmed communication was working. "Stay sharp, stay together," Buck said before they separated. By 8:15, Buck's group found fresh tracks crossing a muddy section of trail, clearly bipedal with 5 toes. The prints measured 17 inches long and 7 inches wide. Stride length suggested 6 to 7 foot steps. Too large for human, too humanoid for bear. Buck examined them closely. "These are fresh, maybe an hour old." The trail led deeper into forest, away from established paths. Buck used his tracking skills, noting broken branches at 7 to 8 foot height. Something large had passed through recently. The brush was still bent. Wild Bill followed close behind. "Whatever made these is big." At 8:45, they discovered a tree structure. Logs and branches arranged in a deliberate teepee formation. Fresh breaks on the branches. This was a classic Bigfoot territorial marker. "This is what we've been looking for," Buck said. Willie captured everything on camera. Huckleberry radioed from the south team. They were hearing strange vocalizations echoing through the valley. Deep, guttural sounds. Not coyote, not wolf, coming from Buck's direction. "Whatever's up there knows you're there," Huckleberry warned. By 9:10, the tracks led uphill toward the ridge into even denser forest. Visibility was decreasing. Wild Bill suggested turning back, but Buck wanted to continue. "We're close. I can feel it." The terrain changed to rocky outcroppings with large boulders creating a maze. Caves and crevices everywhere. Perfect hiding spots for something massive. At 9:35, Buck made a decision. He would scout ahead alone to check a cave entrance. "Give me 5 minutes," he told the team. Wild Bill was reluctant, but agreed. Willie filmed as Buck disappeared into the darkness with only his flashlight. What happened next would change Buck's life forever. At 9:38 p.m., Buck moved alone toward a large cave opening. His flashlight beam swept across rocks, searching for signs of habitation, hair samples, scat, anything. Years of hunting experience guided every careful step. Then the smell hit him. Overwhelming musky odor like wet dog mixed with something wilder. Buck recognized it immediately. "Oh God, it's here," he whispered into his radio. He didn't wait for a response. The smell was getting stronger with each step toward the cave entrance. A sound stopped him cold. Deep, heavy breathing. Rhythmic and controlled. Coming from his left, not the cave, behind a large boulder. Buck froze completely. That breathing sounded intelligent, aware. Buck turned slowly and swung his flashlight left. The beam crossed trees, then caught something, a dark mass between the trunks, 20 feet away. His flashlight found it, and his brain struggled to process what he was seeing. The creature stood fully upright, massive, easily 9 feet tall, shoulders broader than any man, covered in dark brown, almost black hair. Arms hanging past its knees, but the face stopped Buck's breath. Less hair than the body, dark skin visible, flat nose, wide nostrils, prominent brow ridge, and the eyes. The eyes caught his flashlight and reflected back like animal eyeshine, yellowish amber, looking directly at Buck. Neither moved. Buck and the creature locked eyes. Buck's flashlight remained steady on its face. The creature didn't flinch from the light, just stared back. Buck could see its chest rising and falling with each breath. This wasn't a costume. This wasn't a man. This was something else, and Buck's hand began trembling. The flashlight beam shook. "Oh my God," he whispered. His legs wouldn't move. His heart pounded visibly in his chest. The camera 40 feet back captured everything. Buck's pure shock, his frozen stance, his trembling hands. The creature stood completely still. No aggression, no fear, just observing Buck with intelligence in those amber eyes. Buck felt it studying him, thinking. 6 seconds felt like hours. Then the creature shifted its weight slightly and took one step sideways, never breaking eye contact, moving toward denser cover, and then it was gone. Willie's camera filmed from 40 feet back. He couldn't see what Buck saw in the darkness, but he captured Buck's reaction perfectly, and that's what matters. Buck's voice came through clearly on the audio. "Oh my God." Then again, "It's real. It's right there." His voice shaking, breaking, not acting, genuine shock. Years of skepticism shattered in seconds. The camera documented Buck's physical response. His knees buckled slightly. He caught himself stumbling. His flashlight dropped briefly and he scrambled to recover it. Even from 40 feet away, his hands were visibly shaking. Body language showed pure fear. Buck took a step backward and stumbled over a root, nearly falling. He caught himself on a tree but couldn't look away. His flashlight beam trembled violently. Every instinct screamed run, but Buck forced himself to stay. He reached for his radio with his left hand while keeping the flashlight on the creature. His hand shook too much. He dropped the radio. When he bent to pick it up and looked back up, the creature was gone. "No, no, no, where'd it go?" Panic filled his voice. He spun in circles, flashlight sweeping frantically. Wild Bill came running. "Buck, what happened?" He found Buck standing there, flashlight sweeping wildly. "It was right there," Buck pointed. 20 feet, Bill, 20 feet. "What was? What did you see?" Wild Bill asked. Buck's answer came tumbling out. "Bigfoot, Bill. I saw Bigfoot. 9 feet tall, covered in hair. It was looking at me, right in the eyes, Bill. It was real. It was right there." Wild Bill had known Buck for decades. He'd never seen him like this. Buck doesn't scare easily. Buck doesn't exaggerate. If Buck said he saw it, Wild Bill believed him completely. Okay, you're all right," Wild Bill said calmly, calling the rest of the team. Buck had to sit down on a rock, adrenaline crashing, legs weak, hands still shaking. "I've been hunting these things for years," he said quietly. "Always believed they were out here, but seeing one, that's different. That changes everything." Willie's primary camera footage shows Buck approaching the cave, his flashlight visible in the darkness. Then his posture changes suddenly. His entire body tenses. The flashlight beam focuses on one spot and holds there for several seconds. Then the reaction begins, all captured on film. The audio analysis reveals Buck's voice clearly recorded saying, "Oh my God," multiple times. Heavy breathing is audible. Radio fumbling sounds. But there's something else. A deep, low rumble. Not human. Not Buck. Something else was there. Huckleberry's thermal camera from the ridge shows Buck's heat signature clearly. And something else. A large heat signature appears near Buck behind the boulder area. It registers warmer than ambient temperature, suggesting a living mammal. The signature is roughly human-shaped but much larger, 8 to 9 feet tall, standing upright. The thermal shows both signatures stationary for several seconds. Then the larger one shifts position, moves left toward the trees, and disappears from thermal view. Too fast for something that size. "That's not a person," Huckleberry said. "Nothing moves like that." When Willie's footage is enhanced and slowed down, 1 or 2 frames show a dark mass visible between trees when Buck's flashlight swings. The figure appears too tall for a human with wrong proportions. Arms too long. 1 frame captures eye shine. Amber yellow coloring reflecting from Buck's flashlight at approximately 8 feet high. Not deer, wrong color. Not bear, wrong height. Not human, humans don't have eye shine. After the encounter, the team searched the area and found physical evidence. A ground depression where something heavy stood, measured 18 inches long with a partial print visible. Casts were made immediately. Hair samples were found on bark at 7-foot height. Dark brown, coarse texture. The hair was sent for analysis. Results came back. Primate, but not gorilla, not chimpanzee, not human. Unknown species. Buck led the team back to the exact spot an hour later. The musky odor was still present. The entire team confirmed the smell. "Like wet dog and something else," Wild Bill described it. "I've smelled bear before. This ain't bear." The next morning at base camp, Buck sat with coffee. His hands were steadier, but something had changed in him. The team gathered with cameras rolling to hear the full story. "I've hunted these mountains 30 years, Buck began. Seen bear, cougar, everything. Nothing prepared me for that." He took a deep breath. "It was aware, you understand? Not like an animal, like something in between." Buck described the face in detail. The hair on its body was thick, but the face had less. Could see the skin, dark, leathery, but the eyes, he paused, getting emotional. The eyes looked intelligent. It was studying me. The emotional impact was clear. I've never felt fear like that. Complete primal terror. Every instinct said run, but I couldn't move, couldn't look away. It's like it held me there. His voice cracked slightly. The emotion was genuine. "I've dedicated years to this." Trapper believed. I believed. But seeing it, that's proof. Not just to others. Proof to myself. They're real. Buck admitted he didn't sleep that night. Keep seeing those eyes, wondering what it was thinking. Did it know I wouldn't hurt it? Is that why it just watched? So many questions. But I know what I saw. People can doubt the show, can say we're actors. But I know. I looked into its eyes, 20 feet away. That was real. Nothing can take that from me. Buck's message was clear. They're out there, living in these mountains, avoiding us mostly, but they're there. I'm proof now. I've seen one, and I'll never forget it. Then Buck got emotional talking about Trapper. Wish Trapper was here. He'd understand. He saw things too. Now I know what he felt. That mix of fear and wonder. Trapper. We were right. He had to pause, too overcome to continue. The interview captured a man fundamentally changed by what he witnessed. Buck Lowe wasn't acting. He was processing something that shattered everything he thought he knew about the world. Wild Bill has known Buck for 20 years. Never seen him scared. He was terrified. When I got to him, he was shaking. Couldn't talk straight. Whatever he saw was real. Buck doesn't fake that. Wild Bill described finding Buck standing frozen with his flashlight pointing at trees, saying, "It was right there. Over and over. I looked, didn't see nothing, but Buck saw something. No doubt in my mind." Huckleberry watched from the ridge on thermal. "I saw Buck's signature. Then this other signature appears. Bigger, warmer, standing near him. Both just standing there. Then the big one moves and disappears from thermal. Too fast, that shouldn't happen." Huckleberry's technical analysis was definitive. Heat signature was consistent with large primate. Body temperature higher than ambient, suggesting mammal. Size estimated 8 to 9 feet based on thermal reading. This wasn't equipment malfunction. This was something. Jeff Headley focused on the research. "This area has history. Sightings going back decades. Native American legends. Buck's encounter fits the pattern. Location, behavior, description. Everything matches historical reports. This is textbook Bigfoot encounter." Jeff's conviction was strong. "I've researched hundreds of cases. Buck's is among the most credible. Multiple forms of evidence, thermal, video, witness testimony, hair samples, footprints, all corroborating the same story. This is the real deal. Willie has filmed hundreds of episodes. Never caught Buck like that. That reaction was genuine. You can't fake that fear. The way his voice shook, his hands trembling, that was real terror. Willie's perspective was unique. I couldn't see what Buck saw. Too dark, too far. But I saw him. Saw his reaction. That's the proof. Buck Lowe doesn't scare. Whatever he saw scared him. That tells you everything." The team reached consensus. "We all believe Buck. The evidence supports him. Thermal shows something there. Video shows his reaction. Physical evidence matches. This was a real encounter. No doubt among the team. This encounter validated years of work and proved what Trapper always believed. They're really out there." When the episode aired, social media exploded. Hashtag #BuckSawBigfoot trended immediately. Millions of views within hours. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. The paranormal community divided sharply. Believers responded enthusiastically. "Finally, proof!" Buck's reaction says everything. You can't fake that fear. The thermal evidence convinced many. Bigfoot researchers analyzed the footage frame by frame. "This is the best evidence yet," many declared. Believers pointed to Buck's credibility, 30 years of hunting experience, not prone to exaggeration. His genuine fear was documented, physical shaking visible on camera. The thermal signature provided independent verification. Hair sample analysis showed unknown primate. Everything aligned perfectly. Skeptics argued differently. Reality TV is scripted. Buck's an actor playing a role. Producers told him what to do. They questioned the thermal readings. Could be faked or misinterpreted. The hair sample results were dismissed as contamination. Convenient that there's no clear footage of the creature itself. The skeptics' main complaint focused on the lack of clear images. If it was 20 feet away, why no clear photo? Convenient darkness. Convenient camera angle. Just Buck's reaction and a thermal blob. They demanded better evidence. Believers countered logically. The creature was in shadows. Buck's flashlight wasn't powerful enough for clear photography. The camera was 40 feet back, not in position. Buck didn't have a camera himself. He wasn't prepared for the encounter. This is what a real encounter looks like, not a documentary setup. Even skeptics admitted Buck's reaction seemed genuine. Either he saw something real, or he's an Oscar-worthy actor. Body language experts analyzed the footage. Genuine fear response. Can't fake those micro-expressions. Pupil dilation visible. Voice stress analysis indicates truth. Thermal experts confirmed. Signature is consistent with large primate. The middle ground emerged. Buck saw something. Maybe not Bigfoot, but something scared him genuinely. The encounter itself was real. The identity of the creature remains debatable. This encounter stands out among Bigfoot evidence. Multiple evidence types. Credible witness, documented reaction, technical data, physical samples, historical context. Even serious skeptics take it seriously. Buck couldn't sleep for days after the encounter. He kept replaying the moment, seeing those amber eyes every time he closed his own. The nightmares eventually faded, but the memory never did. The experience changed his entire perspective on hunting. Buck approaches investigations differently now, more cautious, hyper-aware of surroundings. I know they're watching. I know they're intelligent. They're not just cryptids. They're living, thinking beings that deserve respect. The encounter strengthened his relationship with the team. They validated him without question, supported him completely. That's family, Buck says. The shared mission was renewed with greater purpose. Buck feels closer to Trapper now. I understand what he experienced, the weight of knowing. Trapper saw things too. Now I know what he carried. That knowledge, that certainty, it changes you. The connection to Trapper's memory makes the work more meaningful. As team leader, Buck has more confidence. I know we're pursuing real creatures, not just legends, real beings. That makes everything we do matter. It honors Trapper's memory and validates years of effort. Public perception doesn't concern Buck anymore. Some mock him, some believe him. I don't care. I know what I saw. Don't need anyone's approval. I was there, 20 feet away. His confidence is unshakable. Buck's message to others is clear. They're out there. I'm living proof. I looked one in the eyes. If you spend time in deep woods, respect what's there. You're in their territory. They're watching you. The experience reevaluated Buck's priorities. This work matters. Finding truth matters. If they exist, they need protection from people who'd hurt or exploit them. Education, not exploitation. They're not monsters, just creatures trying to survive. 1 year later, Buck reflects on October 2023. Changed my life. Before and after that night. Before I believed. After, I knew. That's everything. He gets emotional. People can doubt. People can mock. I don't care. I was there, 20 feet away, looked into its eyes. It looked back. That's mine. Nobody can take that. His voice breaks. Those eyes. I'll never forget those eyes. Mountain Monsters has investigated hundreds of locations, faced bears, dangerous terrain, extreme weather, but one episode never aired. September 2019, deep in Kentucky mountains hunting the Yahoo. Something went horribly wrong. The crew was attacked. Not scared. Attacked. Wild Bill hit by rock, cracked rib. Huckleberry grabbed and thrown 5 feet. Marcus's arm slashed, 3 parallel cuts. 4 crew members hospitalized in one night. All captured on camera. Subscribe because Travel Channel banned this episode permanently. The footage is too violent, too real, too disturbing for television. Creatures charged them. Physical contact. Documented injuries. Medical records prove it. This wasn't entertainment. This was survival. The most violent cryptid encounter ever filmed, and the network decided you should never see it. This is what really happened during the banned Mountain Monsters episode, and why some hunts aren't worth the risk. Devil's Creek Hollow sits in the remote mountains of Pike County, eastern Kentucky, deep in Appalachian territory. The area is accessible only by rough logging roads that wind through dense forest. Steep ridges surround the hollow. Cave systems penetrate the mountains. The nearest town is 40 minutes away on treacherous roads. Cell phone service doesn't exist. The local population is sparse and secretive about what lives in those mountains. The Yahoo is a regional cryptid reported for generations across Appalachia. Unlike the typically shy Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, the Yahoo is known for extreme territorial aggression. Described as 7 to 8 feet tall and covered in reddish-brown hair, It's blamed for multiple livestock killings over decades. Several hunters have reported being chased from the area. One hunter was hospitalized in the 1990s after an encounter, though he refused to discuss details. Locals genuinely fear Devil's Creek Hollow. Many won't enter after dark. In August 2019, multiple recent sightings reached the Ames team. A local farmer's cattle were mutilated in ways that didn't match bear or cougar attacks. Strange vocalizations were recorded by campers. Massive tracks measuring 19 inches were found near the creek. Elaborate tree structures appeared overnight. The pattern suggested an active, aggressive creature. Desperate locals contacted mountain monsters directly, asking for help. Before the investigation began, warning signs appeared. Local residents warned the team repeatedly, "Don't go up there after dark. That thing don't run from people. It hunts people." Most significantly, a Native American elder visited their base camp. "You're making a mistake," he told Buck directly. "This one is different. It's territorial and violent. You should leave." The team dismissed the warnings as superstition and local fear. The full Ames team deployed for the investigation. Buck Lowe led as team leader. Wild Bill, Huckleberry, Jeff Headley, and Willie McQuillian comprised the core team. The production crew totaled 8 people, including multiple camera operators, a sound technician, and a producer on site. They brought complete equipment: thermal imaging, night vision, audio recorders, trail cameras, and communication gear. The investigation plan covered 3 nights. Night 1 for reconnaissance and evidence gathering. Night 2 for building traps and setting cameras. Night 3 for active hunting. Base camp was established at the hollow's entrance. Teams would split coverage for efficiency and coordinate via radio. Medical kits were on standby as standard procedure. From the beginning, the atmosphere felt wrong. Wild Bill commented immediately, "This place feels wrong." The forest was unnaturally quiet with no bird sounds or insect noise. An oppressive feeling hung in the air. Even experienced crew members felt nervous. But Buck decided to proceed. "We've handled worse," he said confidently. They hadn't handled anything like what was waiting for them in Devil's Creek Hollow. At 8 p.m., the team split into 2 groups. Buck, Wild Bill, and Willie headed north toward the ridge. Huckleberry, Jeff, and a camera operator took the south approach through the valley. The producer and remaining crew stayed at base camp. Radio check confirmed communication was working. The sun was setting fast in the hollow and temperature was dropping rapidly. Everyone felt uneasy but proceeded anyway. By 8:45, Buck's team discovered massive footprints crossing a muddy section near the creek. The prints measured 19 inches long with 5 distinct toes. Deep impressions suggested something weighing over 600 pounds. The stride length indicated 7 to 8 foot steps between prints, too large for human, too humanoid for bear. Buck examined them closely. "These are the biggest I've ever seen, and they're fresh, maybe within the last hour." At 9:15, they found elaborate tree structures, 8-foot logs stacked deliberately in patterns, fresh breaks on branches, saplings bent and woven together. These structures were far more complex than typical Bigfoot markers. They suggested high intelligence and very recent activity. "Something built this today," Buck said quietly. The realization was unsettling. The first unusual occurrence came at 9:30. Loud crashing sounds erupted from the brush approximately 50 yards from the team. Something large was moving parallel to their position, keeping pace as they walked. Wild Bill stopped the team. "Something's tracking us." They listened carefully. The crashing stopped immediately when they stopped. When the team resumed walking, the sounds resumed, matching their pace exactly. By 9:50, deep guttural howls echoed from the ridge above them. The sound was unlike any animal they recognized. Not bear, not cougar, not coyote. Before they could process it, a second howl answered from the opposite direction. The team realized with growing dread that they were positioned between at least 2 of them. Huckleberry's team radioed that they were hearing the same vocalizations coming from multiple directions around their position. "They're communicating about us," Jeff said nervously. Huckleberry scanned with the thermal camera at 10:10. Multiple large heat signatures appeared on the screen. At least 3, possibly 4 distinct sources. They were moving in a coordinated pattern, staying just outside clear visual range at approximately 200 yards out. The signatures were circling both teams systematically. "They're surrounding us," Huckleberry reported over radio, his voice tense. Buck made an immediate decision. He radioed both teams. Everyone back to base camp. Slow and steady, stay together. This wasn't panic, but tactical retreat. He didn't want teams separated with coordinated creatures watching their every move. Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., the team settled into camp for the night. Tents were set up in a clearing with the generator running to power lights and equipment. A perimeter was established with portable lights. Buck and Wild Bill took the first watch while the rest of the team tried to sleep. The forest remained eerily quiet, with no normal night sounds whatsoever. At 1:15 a.m., the generator suddenly died. All lights went out immediately, plunging the camp into complete darkness. Buck went to investigate and found the fuel line deliberately cut with a clean slice, not animal damage. "Someone or something sabotaged this," he announced. The team went on high alert immediately. Within minutes, flashlights revealed multiple sets of eyes reflecting from the tree line. They completely surrounded the camp from at least 5 or 6 positions. The eyes were 8 to 9 feet off the ground, far too high for any normal animal. They just watched without approaching. The team armed themselves and formed a defensive circle. The eyes would disappear when flashlights pointed directly at them, then reappear in different locations. They were moving around the perimeter, testing the camp's response. This was intelligent, calculated behavior. "They're hunting us," Wild Bill said quietly, "testing our defenses." At 1:35, large rocks began being thrown into camp from multiple directions. The rocks landed near tents but weren't hitting anyone deliberately. This was intimidation. One rock the size of a softball landed 3 feet from a camera operator. The crew was starting to panic. At 1:42, camera operator Marcus went to his tent to grab equipment. The team heard him scream, "Something grabbed me!" Everyone rushed over to find Marcus pale and shaking violently. 3 parallel scratches ran down his arm, bleeding. He explained that something had grabbed his arm from outside the tent and pulled him backward. The grip was incredibly strong. He pulled free and saw a massive hand covered in dark hair before it disappeared. The medic examined Marcus immediately. The scratches were 3 parallel marks, 4 inches long each, deep enough to draw blood. The spacing suggested a very large hand, not bear claws, not human nails, something in between. The team pulled everyone into the center of camp. No one was allowed near the perimeter. Buck tried to radio for extraction, but communications were dead. The satellite phone was also not working. They were completely cut off from the outside with no way to call for help. The generator was sabotaged. Communications were disabled. They were surrounded by multiple intelligent creatures showing coordinated behavior and willingness to make physical contact. From 2 a.m. until 5:15, when dawn finally broke, the team huddled together. Constant sounds came from the perimeter, heavy footsteps circling, breathing audible in the darkness. Occasional glimpses of massive figures moving just beyond the light. No one slept. Everyone was terrified. When first light came, the creatures melted back into the forest. Examination of the perimeter revealed dozens of massive footprints surrounding the entire camp. They had been playing with the team all night. Morning daylight revealed the full extent of the night's events. The generator fuel line showed a deep, deliberate slash. Multiple equipment items were moved, knocked over, or damaged. Food supplies were scattered across camp. The message was clear: we can reach anything. Footprint casts were made from the clearest prints. They measured 18 to 20 inches long, with depth suggesting 500 to 700 pounds. At least 6 different sets were identified, proving multiple individuals working together in coordinated patterns around the camp. Marcus's scratches were cleaned, bandaged, and photographed extensively. The spacing between marks measured 3 inches. The depth was a 1/4 inch into his skin. Pattern analysis showed 4 fingers plus thumb with a hand span of 9 to 10 inches minimum. This was consistent with a massive humanoid hand, not any known animal. The producer called for medical extraction for Marcus. Marcus refused to leave. "I'm not going through those woods alone, and you need the camera crew." He stayed despite being clearly traumatized, jumping at every sound. Buck called an emergency meeting at 9 a.m. Should they continue or abort? Arguments for leaving included the physical attack, crew injury, and seriously compromised safety. Arguments for staying included only 1 night remaining, incredible evidence already captured, and the belief that daylight hours should be safe. The production company via satellite phone pressured them to continue. "Can you make it 1 more night?" Buck reluctantly agreed, but set strict conditions. Everyone stays together. No split teams, no one goes anywhere alone, full perimeter lighting, backup generator, weapons loaded and ready. At first sign of danger, immediate extraction. We're not risking lives for footage. During daylight, Jeff and Huckleberry, scouting near camp, found a cave system 200 yards away. Large openings with fresh tracks leading inside. a massive nest of branches inside the entrance. We camped right in their territory, Jeff realized. This explained the aggressive territorial behavior. The creatures were defending their home. That made the coming night even more dangerous. At 7:30 p.m., the entire team deployed together. No split teams this time. Full lighting perimeter was active with the backup generator running. All cameras were positioned. The team formed a defensive formation and waited. Anxiety was extremely high. For the first hour and a half, nothing happened. The silence was too quiet, unnatural, no forest sounds at all. The team was on edge, waiting for something. The calm before the storm feeling was palpable. At 9:15, a massive figure stepped into the light range at the edge of the perimeter. 9 feet tall, covered in dark reddish-brown hair with a muscular build. It stood completely still, staring directly at the team for nearly 3 minutes. This was challenge behavior. Then it stepped back into darkness and disappeared. Between 9:20 and 10 p.m., different creatures appeared at different positions around the perimeter. They showed themselves briefly, then vanished. This was coordinated display, establishing dominance. There's at least 5 of them, Buck counted. At 10:15, large rocks were suddenly thrown from multiple directions simultaneously. Dozens of them hit tents and equipment. One destroyed a camera. Another grazed the sound technician's shoulder. This was a coordinated attack. At 10:18, a rock the size of a baseball hit Wild Bill's back between his shoulder blades. He went down hard. The team rushed to him as he lay conscious but unable to breathe properly. Rocks were still being thrown all around them. Someone yelled, "Get to the vehicles!" Buck shouted, "Everyone move, now!" They grabbed Wild Bill and began retreating. At 10:22, as the team moved toward vehicles, a massive creature charged from the tree line. 8 feet tall and enormous, it ran directly at them. The team scattered. Huckleberry tripped and fell. The creature was heading straight for him. The creature reached Huckleberry, grabbed his backpack, and lifted him completely off the ground. It threw him 5 feet through the air. Huckleberry hit the ground hard. The creature stood over him as Huckleberry screamed. Buck fired his gun into the air. The gunshot made the creature pause. It looked at Buck, made a decision, then released Huckleberry. It backed away slowly, never breaking eye contact with Buck, then turned and disappeared into darkness within seconds. The team grabbed Huckleberry. He was conscious but terrified, his back injured from being thrown. Wild Bill was still in severe pain. "Get in the trucks now!" Everyone ran, abandoning all equipment. Their only goal was getting out alive. They reached the vehicles and piled in frantically. Engines started. The headlights revealed multiple large figures watching them leave. The creatures didn't pursue. Their mission was accomplished. Territory defended. The team escaped at 10:28 p.m., speeding down the mountain road, leaving everything behind. 2 crew members were seriously injured. The most violent encounter mountain monsters ever documented was over, but the consequences were just beginning. The 2 trucks sped down mountain roads for 40 minutes to reach Pike County Medical Center. Everyone was silent except for groans of pain. Wild Bill could barely breathe. Huckleberry's back was seizing up. Marcus's scratches were bleeding through his bandage. The sound technician's shoulder was swelling rapidly. At 11:15 p.m., they reached the emergency room. 4 team members required immediate treatment. Wild Bill was taken for x-rays. His diagnosis: cracked rib with severe bruising across his back, showing impact pattern consistent with a large rock. The doctor said, "You're lucky it's not worse. That rock hit with serious force." He was prescribed pain medication and restricted from activity for 2 weeks. Huckleberry's examination revealed severe lower back strain, possible herniated disc, and whiplash from being thrown. Bruising covered his shoulders and back where the creature grabbed him. The bruises were handprint-shaped, measuring 10 to 11 inches in span, much larger than any human hand. Medical staff photographed and measured them, confused about what could have grabbed him with such force. Marcus's scratches showed signs of infection 24 hours later. Antibiotics were prescribed. The wounds were deeper than initially thought. The 3 parallel marks would scar permanently, leaving him with proof of what attacked him. The producer arrived at the hospital with network executives on conference call. They discussed liability concerns, insurance questions, and legal implications. 4 injured crew members with documented physical attacks created serious complications. Willie reviewed the footage in the hospital waiting room. The rock throwing was clearly visible. The creature charging Huckleberry was captured on camera. Physical contact was documented. Huckleberry being thrown was visible. The creature standing over him was filmed. "This is the most violent encounter ever filmed," Willie said quietly. Network executives immediately expressed concern. This went beyond entertainment. People were genuinely hurt. Do we air this? Legal teams began reviewing footage. Insurance companies started investigating. OSHA became potentially involved. The evidence was undeniable, but the question became, what should be done about it? Network lawyers reviewed all footage and identified multiple liability issues. Crew members were injured during production, making the company potentially liable. Workers' compensation claims were likely. OSHA violations were possible. The insurance company denied coverage, invoking acts of nature exclusions. Legal exposure was too great. The violence factor was unprecedented. This episode showed real physical attacks, not implied danger. Actual documented violence with people genuinely hurt on camera. This was different from typical Mountain Monsters content. It crossed the line from investigation to assault. Network standards determined it was too intense for television. Travel Channel's brand image was at stake. The network was known for paranormal entertainment, not graphic violence. This episode showed people being attacked, injured seriously, and traumatized psychologically. Sponsors might object. The reputation could be damaged. It didn't fit their brand. Internal ethical debates questioned whether profiting from crew injuries was exploitation. The team went through genuine trauma for entertainment purposes. Was it ethical to broadcast that? The network chose ethics over potential profit. Buck initially wanted the episode to air. People need to see what's out there. This is proof. But after reflection, he changed his mind. My team got hurt. Marcus, Wild Bill, Huckleberry injured. Maybe some things aren't worth proving. He supported the network's decision. Team members' views were divided. Some wanted evidence shown. We went through that. People should see. Others were traumatized. I don't want to relive it. Don't want my pain as entertainment. Huckleberry especially opposed airing footage of being physically attacked and thrown. Too personal, too traumatic. In November 2019, Travel Channel officially banned the episode. It will never air on television. Footage was archived but not destroyed, kept from the public. Team members signed NDAs about specific details. The general story could be discussed, but not graphic footage details. The network issued a vague public statement. Due to production complications, the episode will not air. No specifics were given. Fans speculated wildly and rumors spread, but the truth remained hidden until now. In March 2020, an anonymous crew member posted on Reddit claiming to have worked on Mountain Monsters. They described the Kentucky incident. Crew was attacked. People got hurt. Episode banned. The post was deleted quickly, but screenshots spread everywhere. Hospital records leaked online with names redacted, but injuries documented. 4 patients treated the same night from incident at Devil's Creek Hollow. Cracked rib, back injury, lacerations. This corroborated the Reddit post. Proof something really happened. A small Pike County newspaper article from September 2019 was found. Television crew injured during filming. 4 transported to hospital. Wildlife encounter suspected. The article confirmed the date and location, matching all leaked information. Wild Bill posted cryptically in October 2019. Sometimes the hunt hunts you back. Huckleberry went dark on social media for 3 months. Marcus left Mountain Monsters permanently, never returning to the crew. The trauma was too severe. Buck Lowe was never the same after Kentucky. He became more cautious as a leader, questioning every investigation. Is this worth risking my team? He won't ignore warnings anymore. The elder told them not to go. They should have listened. Wild Bill's rib healed within months, but psychological impact remained. He's more hesitant on investigations now, constantly checking surroundings. That night changed me. Realize these things can kill us. We're not invincible. Huckleberry's back problems persist years later. He required physical therapy for months and still has occasional pain. The handprint bruises took weeks to fade, but the memory never fades. Being grabbed by that thing, thrown like I weighed nothing, that strength was inhuman. He focuses on technology now, keeping distance. I've been close enough. Don't need to experience that again. Marcus never returned to paranormal work. He took camera jobs on nature documentaries. I'm done with cryptids. Almost died in those woods. He can't watch Mountain Monsters anymore without triggering anxiety attacks. Mountain Monsters protocols were completely overhauled. Enhanced safety measures, medical personnel on every shoot, satellite phones mandatory, emergency extraction plans required, hazard assessments before each hunt. The banned episode changed how the show operates permanently. The episode remains banned with no plans to ever release it despite fan demand. Legal reasons remain valid. Footage exists in a vault with heavily restricted access. Only lawyers and executives have seen it. What we know for certain: 4 crew members injured, medical records documented. Physical attacks occurred and were captured on camera. The episode was completed. Network chose not to air it. The ban remains in effect. This was the most violent encounter the show ever documented. The lesson learned: not all cryptids are passive. Some are territorial and violent. Yahoos are different from typical Bigfoot. Warnings should be heeded. Safety over evidence. People over profit. Some hunts should be abandoned. Devil's Creek Hollow remains off limits. Mountain Monsters will never return there. Mountain Monsters began as a beloved cryptid hunting show featuring a group of rugged Appalachian hunters tracking legendary creatures through the backwoods of West Virginia. The Ames team, led by the legendary Trapper, became fan favorites with their authentic personalities, southern charm, and dedication to uncovering the truth about Bigfoot, the Mothman, and other mysterious beasts. But behind the cameras, tragedy was unfolding that would devastate the cast and shock viewers who thought they were just watching entertaining television. Death, serious injuries, legal troubles, and betrayals tore apart the team that once seemed unbreakable. What happened to these cryptid hunters goes far beyond anything shown on Travel Channel. From devastating health crises to scandalous allegations, the real story of Mountain Monsters is darker than any creature they ever tracked. Make sure you're subscribed because the truth about what happened to this legendary cast will leave you speechless. John Trapper Tice was the heart and soul of Mountain Monsters. As the team leader of the Ames crew, his gravelly voice, strategic mind, and genuine passion for cryptid investigation made him irreplaceable. Trapper's larger-than-life personality and father-figure presence held the team together through countless dangerous investigations in the Appalachian wilderness. But in early 2019, everything changed when Trapper received a devastating cancer diagnosis that would end his life within months. The cancer was aggressive and had already spread throughout his body by the time doctors discovered it. Trapper, ever the tough Appalachian hunter, initially tried to keep filming despite his deteriorating condition. Those final episodes show a man visibly weakening, struggling to keep pace with investigations that once energized him. His voice, normally commanding and strong, became raspy and strained. Team members noticed, but Trapper refused to quit, insisting he wanted to finish the season and continue doing what he loved. By spring 2019, Trapper could no longer hide how sick he'd become. He passed away quietly, surrounded by family, leaving the Ames team devastated and the show's future uncertain. The news broke hearts across the cryptid hunting community. Fans flooded social media with tributes, sharing favorite Trapper moments and expressing grief over losing someone who felt like family even through a television screen. The remaining cast members, Wild Bill, Willie, Jeff, Huckleberry, and Buck, struggled to process the loss. They'd spent years together in the woods, facing danger and forging bonds that transcended a television show. Losing Trapper meant losing their leader, their strategist, and for many, a mentor and friend who'd guided them through the cryptid hunting world. Travel Channel aired a special tribute episode honoring Trapper's legacy, featuring behind-the-scenes footage and emotional testimonials from the team. Wild Bill broke down on camera describing what Trapper meant to him. Willie shared stories about Trapper's wisdom and kindness off camera. The tribute revealed a man far more complex and caring than the gruff hunter persona he projected during investigations. Trapper's death fundamentally changed Mountain Monsters. The show tried to continue without him, but the chemistry was broken. No one could replace Trapper's leadership or fill the void his absence created. The team investigated cryptids half-heartedly, going through motions that felt empty without their legendary leader calling the shots. William Wild Bill Neff was known for his boisterous personality, infectious laugh, and fearless approach to cryptid hunting. But during filming in late 2018, Wild Bill experienced a terrifying medical emergency that nearly ended his life and forced him to confront his mortality in the West Virginia wilderness. The team was deep in the mountains investigating reports of a mysterious creature when Wild Bill suddenly collapsed, clutching his chest and struggling to breathe. What initially seemed like exhaustion quickly became obvious as something far more serious. Wild Bill was having a heart attack. The remote filming location made immediate medical assistance impossible. The nearest hospital was over an hour away on treacherous mountain roads, and cell phone service was non-existent in that part of Appalachia. The crew and cast members faced a nightmare scenario watching Wild Bill deteriorate while desperately trying to get him help. They loaded him into a truck and raced down the mountain, breaking every speed limit while Wild Bill faded in and out of consciousness in the back seat. Those minutes felt like hours as the team prayed they'd reach the hospital before it was too late. Wild Bill survived, but the incident fundamentally changed him. Doctors explained that years of stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, and the physical demands of all-night cryptid investigations had taken a devastating toll on his cardiovascular system. He was overweight, had dangerously high blood pressure, and his heart was weakened from years of neglect. The prognosis was clear: continue living this way, and the next heart attack would likely be fatal. Wild Bill faced a choice between the show he loved and his life. Recovery required major lifestyle changes, including weight loss, medication, dietary restrictions, and significantly reduced physical activity. The grueling overnight investigations trudging through mountains and swamps were exactly what doctors ordered him to avoid. Wild Bill struggled with this reality, feeling like he was abandoning his team and the cryptid hunting mission that had become his identity. He did return to mountain monsters after months of recovery, but he was different. The boisterous energy was tempered by awareness of his fragility. Viewers noticed Wild Bill participating less in physically demanding aspects of investigations, hanging back while younger team members did the heavy lifting. His close call with death reminded everyone that these weren't just television personalities playing characters. They were real people risking real health consequences for entertainment. Jeff "Buck" Headley's life changed forever during a weekend off from filming when he was involved in a serious ATV accident on his property in West Virginia. Buck, an experienced outdoorsman who'd spent decades navigating Appalachian terrain, was riding familiar trails when he hit an unexpected obstacle and was thrown violently from the vehicle. The ATV rolled over him, causing severe spinal injuries that left him in excruciating pain and facing the possibility of permanent disability. Emergency responders airlifted Buck to a trauma center where doctors delivered devastating news. He had multiple fractured vertebrae, herniated discs, and nerve damage that might never fully heal. Surgery was required immediately to stabilize his spine and prevent paralysis. The operation was successful, but Buck faced months of grueling physical therapy, with no guarantee he'd ever return to normal functioning. The pain was constant and debilitating, requiring heavy prescription painkillers just to get through each day. For someone whose identity centered on being a tough, capable outdoorsman and cryptid hunter, the injury was psychologically devastating as well as physically crippling. Buck's situation created serious questions about his future with mountain monsters. Could he continue participating in dangerous overnight investigations that required hiking rough terrain, building traps, and responding quickly to potential cryptid encounters? The show's insurance and liability concerns were legitimate. If Buck re-injured himself during filming, the production company could face massive lawsuits. But Buck refused to quit. Against medical advice and despite ongoing chronic pain, he insisted on returning to the team. Watching later episodes, you can see Buck struggling. His movements are careful and restricted. He grimaces when climbing over obstacles or bending down. There are moments when pain clearly overwhelms him, and he has to step back while other team members take over. The prescription medications he needed to manage pain also affected his mental sharpness and physical coordination. Buck admitted in interviews that he was taking powerful opioids during filming, a dangerous combination given the show's physical demands and nighttime locations. His determination to continue despite serious injuries spoke to his dedication, but it also raised ethical questions about whether producers should have allowed someone in his condition to keep participating in potentially dangerous situations. In 2020, Travel Channel abruptly canceled Mountain Monsters after 8 seasons, devastating fans and leaving the cast blindsided by a decision that seemed to come out of nowhere. The show had been a consistent ratings performer for the network, drawing loyal audiences who tuned in religiously to follow the Ames team's cryptid investigations. So why would Travel Channel suddenly pull the plug on one of their most recognizable paranormal programs? The official explanation cited programming changes and network restructuring, the generic corporate language that reveals nothing. But insiders tell a very different story about behind-the-scenes chaos that made the show unsustainable. After Trapper's death, production costs increased dramatically as the network tried various approaches to maintain the show's appeal. They brought in consultants, hired additional crew members, and extended filming schedules attempting to recapture the magic that died with Trapper. None of it worked, and budgets ballooned while ratings slowly declined. The remaining cast members were also demanding higher salaries, arguing that as original team members carrying the show without their leader, they deserved significant raises. Negotiations became contentious, with some cast members threatening to quit if their demands weren't met. Travel Channel executives faced an impossible situation: pay more for a show that was performing worse, or cut their losses and move on. There were also rumors of serious conflicts between cast members and producers about creative direction. Some team members wanted to honor Trapper's legacy by maintaining the show's original investigative approach. Others pushed for dramatic changes, including new team members, different locations, and more scripted encounters to boost excitement. These creative disagreements created tension on set that made filming difficult and unpleasant for everyone involved. Production sources described arguments between cast and crew, missed filming days due to disputes, and an overall toxic atmosphere that replaced the camaraderie that once defined Mountain Monsters. The final factor was the broader industry shift towards streaming content and away from traditional cable programming. Travel Channel's parent company was consolidating shows, canceling underperforming series, and investing resources into digital platforms rather than cable television. Mountain Monsters became a casualty of changing media consumption habits and corporate restructuring that had nothing to do with the show's quality or the cast's dedication. When cancellation was announced, fans launched massive social media campaigns demanding the show's return, creating petitions that gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures and flooding Travel Channel with angry messages. Jacob "Huckleberry" Lowe projected a fun-loving, good-natured persona on Mountain Monsters, often providing comic relief during tense investigations with his jokes and enthusiasm. But away from cameras, Huckleberry faced serious legal troubles that threatened his role on the show and revealed a much darker reality behind his television personality. Court records show Huckleberry was arrested multiple times over the years on charges ranging from DUI to domestic incidents, creating serious problems for Travel Channel producers who had to decide whether to continue employing someone with an increasingly troubling legal history. The DUI arrest was particularly problematic because it happened during the show's peak popularity, generating local news coverage that connected Huckleberry directly to Mountain Monsters. He was pulled over late at night driving erratically, failed field sobriety tests, and was taken into custody with a blood alcohol level nearly twice the legal limit. This wasn't a minor mistake. It was dangerous, irresponsible behavior that could have killed someone. Huckleberry's mugshot circulated online, and fans were shocked to see their favorite jovial cryptid hunter looking disheveled and intoxicated in a county jail. The arrest raised questions about whether substance abuse issues were affecting Huckleberry during filming. Crew members later admitted there were times when Huckleberry seemed impaired on set, showing up to investigations with alcohol on his breath or behaving erratically in ways that went beyond his usual comedic personality. Producers allegedly ignored these warning signs because replacing a main cast member would disrupt the show, choosing ratings over addressing legitimate concerns about Huckleberry's well-being and the safety risks his behavior created. Additional legal troubles involved domestic disputes that resulted in police being called to Huckleberry's residence on multiple occasions. While specific details remain sealed in court records, the pattern suggested ongoing personal problems that were escalating rather than improving. Some cast members distanced themselves from Huckleberry during this period, frustrated by his refusal to address his issues, and embarrassed by the negative attention his behavior brought to the show. Travel Channel considered removing Huckleberry from Mountain Monsters entirely, holding emergency meetings with producers and lawyers about contractual options and potential liability if he caused serious problems during filming. Ultimately, they decided to keep him, believing fans would revolt if another original team member disappeared after Trapper's death. But Huckleberry was reportedly placed on strict behavioral conditions, including mandatory sobriety during filming and immediate termination if any additional arrests occurred. From its first episode, Mountain Monsters faced accusations of faking evidence and staging cryptid encounters for dramatic effect. Skeptics analyzed footage frame by frame, identifying what they claimed were obvious fabrications, hired actors in creature costumes, and manipulated thermal imaging meant to convince viewers the Ames team was encountering real paranormal phenomena. The allegations gained serious traction when former crew members began speaking out anonymously on paranormal forums and Reddit threads, sharing behind-the-scenes details about how certain scenes were constructed and evidence was manufactured. One of the most controversial incidents involved thermal imaging footage allegedly showing a large bipedal creature moving through the forest during a Bigfoot investigation. Skeptics quickly pointed out inconsistencies in the thermal signature, arguing the heat distribution was inconsistent with a living creature and more consistent with a person wearing a costume with strategically placed heating elements. Video analysis experts noted that the creature moved in ways suspiciously similar to a human gait, despite producers claiming it was too large and moved too unusually to be a person. The Ames team defended the footage as authentic, but the technical breakdowns were damaging and convinced many viewers the show was deliberately deceiving its audience. The elaborate traps the team built to capture cryptids became another source of fraud allegations. Critics noted that despite spending entire episodes constructing complex snares, cages, and trigger mechanisms, the traps never actually caught anything significant. The pattern was predictable. The team would find evidence suggesting a creature was nearby, build an impressive trap, set up cameras, and return the next morning to find the trap mysteriously destroyed or bypassed by whatever they were hunting. Skeptics argued this was scripted failure designed to maintain ongoing narrative tension while never having to produce actual cryptid specimens that would expose the show as fiction. Some of the most damning allegations came from local residents in areas where Mountain Monsters filmed who claimed they witnessed production assistants placing fake evidence like footprints, claw marks, and disturbed vegetation before the main cast discovered these clues on camera. One West Virginia resident described watching crew members preparing a filming location hours before the Ames team arrived, strategically placing items and creating disturbances that would later be presented as organic cryptid evidence. These eyewitness accounts, combined with technical analysis of questionable footage, created a compelling case that Mountain Monsters was entertainment fiction rather than legitimate investigation. William "Willie" McQuillian appeared to be one of the most stable and grounded members of the Ames team, but behind his calm demeanor, he was enduring heartbreaking personal tragedies that would have destroyed most people. During Mountain Monsters' run, Willie lost multiple close family members in rapid succession, including his beloved mother and a sibling, creating a grief spiral that profoundly affected his mental health and his ability to continue filming. Those who knew Willie personally described him as devastated, struggling to process losses that came too quickly to properly mourn before the next tragedy struck. The timing was particularly cruel because Willie's grief coincided with the most demanding production schedule Mountain Monsters had ever faced. He was expected to film grueling overnight investigations in remote locations while emotionally shattered by family deaths, putting on a brave face for cameras while internally falling apart. Cast members noticed Willie becoming withdrawn and distant during this period. The jovial personality that usually emerged during investigations was replaced by someone going through motions mechanically, participating but not truly present. In some episodes from this era, you can see the pain in Willie's eyes even as he tries to focus on cryptid hunting. There are moments when he stands apart from the group, lost in thought, clearly somewhere else mentally, while his teammates discuss investigation strategies. Production sources say Willie requested time off to deal with family matters, but the filming schedule made extended breaks nearly impossible. Missing episodes would disrupt the entire season's arc and create budget problems that producers weren't willing to accommodate. So Willie continued working while grieving, a situation that was unfair and potentially damaging to his well-being. The support system within the Ames team became crucial during Willie's darkest period. Wild Bill, Buck, and other team members rallied around him, offering emotional support and covering for him when grief made it impossible to function normally. They'd grown close over years of shared experiences, and that bond meant something when Willie needed it most. Off camera, the team checked on him constantly, made sure he wasn't alone, and provided the kind of friendship that transcends professional relationships. Trapper, before his own death, was particularly supportive of Willie, offering fatherly advice and perspective gained from his own experiences with loss. Willie later said that Trapper's guidance helped him survive that terrible period, making Trapper's subsequent death even more devastating as Willie lost not just his team leader but a mentor and friend who'd helped him through previous tragedies. After the initial cancellation, Mountain Monsters shocked fans by returning to Travel Channel in 2022. But the comeback was anything but triumphant. What should have been a joyous reunion of beloved cryptid hunters instead became a source of bitter controversy, exposed tensions, and accusations of betrayal that destroyed relationships within the Ames team. The central conflict revolved around how to continue the show without Trapper, and whether new cast members should be added to fill the void his death created. Travel Channel executives pushed hard for fresh faces, believing the show needed new energy and younger demographics to survive in a changing television landscape. Some original team members agreed, viewing new additions as necessary evolution. Others saw it as disrespectful to Trapper's memory and a betrayal of what Mountain Monsters represented. A tight-knit group of Appalachian hunters with genuine history together. The decision to bring in newcomers split the team into factions. Wild Bill and Jeff supported the additions, arguing the show had to adapt or die permanently. Willie and Huckleberry opposed changes, wanting to honor the original team's legacy by keeping the group exclusive to those who'd worked alongside Trapper. These weren't minor disagreements. They became heated arguments about loyalty, legacy, and what the show meant beyond just paychecks and television fame. The tension was palpable on screen, with obvious coldness between cast members who once seemed like family. Money became another major source of conflict. The return deal included renegotiated contracts with wildly different compensation levels based on seniority and perceived value to the show. Some original members received substantial raises, while others were offered the same rates they'd earned years earlier. The disparity created resentment and accusations that certain cast members were prioritizing personal profit over team unity. There were ugly confrontations about who deserved what based on their contributions to Mountain Monster's success, with some team members feeling undervalued and disrespected by the compensation structure. The worst betrayal involved leaked private conversations where cast members criticized each other to producers, suggesting who should be reduced to smaller roles or removed entirely. When these backstabbing comments became known within the group, friendships that had survived years of cryptid hunting in dangerous conditions shattered overnight. Trust evaporated as team members realized people they considered brothers were actively working to diminish their roles or push them off the show completely for competitive and financial advantage. Wild Bill continues cryptid hunting with limited physical activity due to heart issues. Buck struggles with chronic pain from spinal injuries and has withdrawn from public life. Willie left cryptid hunting entirely, focusing on family and healing. Huckleberry remains involved in small-scale investigations, but networks avoid him due to legal troubles. Legal battles continue over show ownership and unpaid residuals. The tight-knit Ames team is fractured beyond repair, with former friends now avoiding each other, and the Mountain Monster's legacy tarnished by tragedy and betrayal. According to Jacob "Buck" Lowe, what happened behind the cameras was never meant to be part of a TV show. Footage disappeared, investigations were quietly shut down, and certain locations were never spoken about again. Buck was known as the fearless rookie, the one willing to push forward when others hesitated. But as the seasons went on, viewers noticed something change. The jokes faded, the fear stopped looking playful, and the show itself began to feel heavier. Now, Buck has finally hinted at why. This isn't about monsters or myths, it's about patterns, erased evidence, and warnings that came from places no one expected. What he claims forces a disturbing question. Was Mountain Monsters documenting folklore or stumbling into something real that couldn't be controlled? Before we go any further, subscribe, because once you hear what Buck says really happened, you'll understand why some stories never get a proper ending. Before audiences ever knew him as the wide-eyed rookie willing to charge into the woods, Jacob "Buck" Lowe was something very different off camera. He wasn't raised on campfire stories meant to scare tourists. He grew up inside the Appalachian foothills where folklore wasn't entertainment, it was local memory. These were stories passed quietly, often with warnings attached. Places you didn't linger, ridges you didn't cross after dark, hollers where search parties went in and never found what they were looking for. Buck absorbed those stories early, but what separated him from others wasn't fear, it was curiosity. He didn't obsess over creatures. He obsessed over why the same locations kept producing the same kinds of stories across decades. As a teenager, he spent hours digging through county records, old newspapers, and handwritten church logs, looking for disappearances and accidents that never quite lined up with official explanations. Long before television, he was already mapping patterns. When Mountain Monsters began filming, Buck joined the team as the youngest and least experienced member. On screen, he was framed as comic relief, eager, fearless, sometimes reckless. It worked. Audiences loved him, but behind the scenes, Buck was doing something very different. While others focused on traps and theories, he started quietly cross-referencing filming locations with historical incidents, missing persons, mine collapses, restricted land purchases that didn't make sense for rural Appalachia. Producers initially dismissed it as overthinking. After all, the show wasn't meant to be an investigation, it was entertainment. But Buck didn't see it that way. To him, the cameras were just tools. The real question was why certain areas reacted the same way every time the team showed up. Equipment failures, sudden silence in the woods, locals refusing to speak once specific ridgelines were mentioned. By the second season, Buck had started keeping a private notebook. Not episode notes, not creature sketches, coordinates, dates, weather shifts, audio anomalies. He never talked about it on camera. When asked, he'd shrug it off with a joke. But crew members later admitted Buck was often the first to go quiet when something felt off, and the last to leave a location once filming stopped. What viewers didn't realize was that Buck wasn't trying to prove monsters were real. He was trying to understand why some places didn't behave like the rest of the world, and that mindset would eventually put him on a collision course with something far bigger than a television show. As Mountain Monsters gained popularity, the structure of the show stayed the same, but the atmosphere didn't. By the third and fourth seasons, something subtle had shifted, and Jacob Buck Lowe was one of the first to feel it. What once felt like stage tension began turning into genuine unease. The woods no longer reacted like a backdrop. They felt alert, as if the environment itself was aware of the crew's presence. On camera, the jokes still landed. The shouting, the running, the exaggerated reactions were all there. But between takes, Buck noticed patterns that couldn't be edited away. Equipment failures weren't random anymore. Cameras would shut down only in certain zones. Batteries drained within minutes in areas locals had warned them not to enter. Audio interference spiked at the same elevations, no matter which county they filmed in. To Buck, that consistency mattered. While the rest of the team focused on the hunt narrative, Buck started quietly comparing locations. He realized many of the most active sites shared strange similarities. Old mining corridors, abandoned rail lines, unexplained land acquisitions, and stretches of forest that appeared on maps but were rarely maintained. In some cases, official property records were incomplete or oddly redacted. That didn't happen by accident. Locals began acting differently too. Early seasons featured people eager to talk. Later shoots were met with silence. Doors closed. Conversations stopped the moment cameras appeared. In one instance, a landowner agreed to be interviewed, then backed out after a brief phone call Buck overheard him take. When asked why, the man simply said, "Y'all don't need to be here," and walked away. Buck started sleeping less. Crew members noticed him pacing at night, listening instead of talking. During one hunt, he refused to step into a clearing despite cameras rolling, quietly telling the others, "This isn't where we're supposed to be standing." That moment never aired. Producers said it slowed the episode. What disturbed Buck most was how often the fear felt anticipatory, not reactive. Sounds happened before movement. Silence fell before activity. It felt less like they were chasing something, and more like something was deciding whether to engage. When Buck raised these concerns privately, he was told not to overthink it. The show had a tone to maintain, but by then, Buck understood something critical. If this were just folklore, randomness would rule. Instead, the patterns were tightening, and when patterns tighten, it usually means something is being controlled. That realization marked the moment Buck stopped seeing Mountain Monsters as a show and started seeing it as a record of places people weren't meant to document. The breaking point came during an investigation that never made it to television. Internally, it was treated like any other case. A new location, local reports, and a build-up toward a nighttime hunt. But from the moment the crew arrived, Jacob Buck Lowe knew this one was different. The area felt restricted in a way that had nothing to do with posted signs or property lines. There were no warnings, yet everything about the place suggested they weren't supposed to be there. The first red flag was the absence of locals. In past investigations, someone always lingered nearby. Curious onlookers, landowners, or neighbors watching from a distance. This time, the surrounding area was empty. No houses with lights on, no distant vehicles, just silence that felt deliberate. Buck later said it reminded him of land that had been quietly cleared, not abandoned. During setup, equipment issues began immediately. Thermal cameras showed movement with no heat source attached. Motion sensors triggered without recording anything. Audio picked up low-frequency interference that engineers couldn't trace. These weren't failures, the devices were functioning, just not in ways that made sense. Buck started documenting everything in a personal notebook, noting timestamps and locations the production logs ignored. The moment that changed everything happened after midnight. While reviewing live feeds, Buck noticed a humanoid shape on thermal, upright, still, and facing the crew. It didn't move like an animal. It didn't flee. It simply stood there, as if waiting. When Buck called it out, multiple cameras cut at once. The feeds went dark for nearly 2 minutes. When systems rebooted, the footage was gone. Producers initially blamed corruption, but Buck overheard an editor later say something that didn't sit right. There was a second copy. That copy, Buck was told, had been flagged and removed before the team even returned home. No explanation followed. The episode outline was rewritten within days. What should have been the central encounter was replaced with vague sounds, jump cuts, and a false alarm conclusion. Buck knew editing tricks. He could spot continuity errors instantly. Weather didn't match. Dialogue was missing. Reaction shots were reused out of sequence. The story had been altered to erase something specific. When Buck pushed back, he was told the same thing repeatedly. It doesn't fit the tone. But tone wasn't the issue. Control was. That unaired investigation marked the first time Buck realized decisions were being made above the production level. Someone outside the show had weighed in, and whatever they saw in that footage, they didn't want it explained or remembered. After the unaired investigation, things didn't return to normal. They tightened. Schedules became vague. Locations were changed without explanation. Certain areas Buck had flagged for follow-up were quietly removed from future plans. And then came the warning. It happened days before the next scheduled shoot. Jacob Buck Lowe received a call from an unlisted number. No caller ID, no voicemail afterward. The voice on the other end was calm, controlled, and unnervingly specific. The man addressed Buck by full name and referenced a location the crew hadn't announced publicly yet. Then he said something Buck would never forget. "You've already documented what you weren't supposed to. Don't push it further." The call ended without a threat, without emotion. That's what disturbed Buck the most. It wasn't intimidation, it was instruction. Buck tried to brush it off as a prank until he checked his phone records. The call didn't exist. No entry, no routing data. When he contacted his carrier, they claimed a temporary system error had occurred. The next day, even that explanation disappeared. The record was gone. He told a producer who dismissed it as coincidence. He told another crew member who joked about fans going too far. But when Buck finally told Trapper, the reaction was different. Trapper didn't laugh. He didn't question it. He simply went quiet before saying, "That means you're getting close." From that point on, Buck became hyper-aware of small details. Vehicles parked too long near their base camp. Drones that appeared briefly overhead before vanishing. Sudden radio interference whenever certain topics came up on set. None of it was dramatic enough to prove, but together it formed a pattern. During one filmed hunt, Buck broke character and spoke directly into the camera, saying, "If someone's watching this, maybe you should tell us why." That line never aired. Editors later claimed it disrupted the pacing. Buck knew better. It disrupted something else. Soon after, new non-disclosure agreements were issued. They were longer, stricter, and unusually broad. Language about unaired material, field anomalies, and external review appeared where it never had before. Buck realized the show wasn't just being produced anymore. It was being monitored, and whatever had been captured during that lost investigation hadn't scared the network. It had alerted someone else entirely. By the time Jacob Buck Lowe realized something was seriously wrong, it was already too late to stop it. The footage from the unaired investigation, the night everything shifted, had entered a phase Buck would later describe as disappearing while we were still standing there. In post-production, Buck requested to review the raw files himself. This wasn't unusual. Cast members had always been allowed to sit in on early cuts, especially when something significant happened in the field. But this time, the response was different. He was told the files were being stabilized. Then he was told they were temporarily locked for review. Then, finally, he was told something that made his stomach drop. The files were no longer accessible to the editing team at all. A longtime editor pulled Buck aside off the record and told him the truth in a whisper. A duplicate of the raw footage had been pulled directly from the server and encrypted, not by the network's usual post-production staff, but by an external party that logged in remotely. The file tag wasn't labeled by episode or date. It was marked restricted material. Within days, the episode outline was rewritten. Scenes were reordered. Dialogue no longer matched the environment. Night shots suddenly cut to daytime audio. What had been a central encounter was replaced with a vague false alarm narrative. Viewers later noticed it immediately. The episode felt wrong, incomplete, like it had been hollowed out. Buck confronted production about it. He wasn't angry yet, just confused. He asked a simple question. Why are we pretending nothing happened? The response wasn't an answer. It was a warning. He was told continuing to push could jeopardize the show's future and his role in it. That was when Buck understood the stakes. This wasn't about entertainment quality or continuity errors. This was about removal, not editing, erasing. Soon after, a second editor quit abruptly. No explanation. His name vanished from the credits on the following episodes. Another staffer told Buck she'd been instructed never to discuss that investigation again, even internally. The phrase used was chillingly specific. It's not part of the record. Then came the final confirmation. Buck attempted to access his own personal backup drive, footage he'd copied in the field as a precaution. The drive powered on, spun, and then failed completely. A data specialist later told him the corruption pattern was unusual, resembling a targeted overwrite rather than random damage. By the end of that month, the footage was gone, not lost, not misplaced, removed. And the most disturbing part wasn't that the network allowed it to happen. It was that they seemed relieved when it was finally gone. After the footage vanished, Jacob Buck Lowe noticed something that unsettled him more than the lost files ever could. The energy on set changed, not dramatically, quietly, like a room where a conversation stops the moment someone walks in. Production meetings became closed door. Decisions that used to involve the whole Ames team were suddenly handled by people Buck didn't recognize. New faces appeared with vague titles: compliance, review, liaison. They didn't joke. They didn't watch monitors for entertainment. They watched people. Buck started feeling like the hunts were no longer being designed for discovery, but for control. Locations were restricted. Certain topics were discouraged before filming even began. When Buck asked why a promising site had been pulled from the schedule, he was told only that it raised concerns. Concerns for who? No one would say. The clearest sign came during a shoot, when Buck requested a copy of raw thermal drone footage. He'd seen something move through the tree line that didn't behave like any animal he knew. Tall, upright, too fast. The drone operator told him the feed had glitched. When Buck asked for the backup, he was informed it had already been reformatted. That had never happened before. Soon after, the team received updated filming guidelines. Buried deep in the language was a new restriction. Content involving non-verifiable biological entities was no longer approved for broadcast. The phrasing wasn't scientific. It wasn't legal. It felt governmental. Buck realized then that Mountain Monsters wasn't just being edited, it was being filtered. Even on camera, things felt different. Conversations were cut mid-thought. Equipment malfunctions Buck knew weren't natural were reframed as jokes. Moments of genuine fear were smoothed over in post-production. The show still looked the same to viewers, but to Buck, it felt staged in reverse. Reality being bent to fit a safer narrative. Behind the scenes, paranoia crept in. Buck noticed his phone behaving strangely, contacts disappearing, battery draining without explanation. Once he found his email inbox wiped clean of months of correspondence related to production. The network blamed a sync error. Buck didn't. He began writing everything down. Dates, names, incidents. He stopped trusting digital storage. If something happened, he wanted a record that couldn't be remotely altered. He also stopped talking freely on set, not because he was scared of the monsters, but because he no longer knew who might be listening. The final straw came when a producer told him, almost kindly, "You need to decide whether you want to keep making television or keep asking questions." That's when Buck understood the truth. Mountain Monsters hadn't uncovered something dangerous in the woods. It had crossed a line where someone else decided the story needed to stop being told. By the time the pressure peaked, Jacob Buck Lowe knew he was alone in his concern. Not because the others didn't sense something was wrong, but because they were choosing silence. New NDAs made speaking risky. Careers were on the line. Families were mentioned in meetings more than locations. Buck didn't blame them, but he couldn't do the same. He began asking questions anyway, quiet ones, off camera. He reached out to a former production assistant who admitted an outside group had accessed the show's servers. Not network, not legal, federal. The word wasn't explained. It didn't need to be. Another contact showed Buck a fragment of a server log listing Mountain Monsters alongside other media suppression cases. The label didn't reference folklore or entertainment. It referenced containment. That was the moment Buck stopped believing this was about ratings, liability, or image. It was about control. Soon after, he was warned again, this time indirectly. A producer told him certain conversations were being flagged. Another suggested he take time off. Buck refused. He'd come to a conclusion he couldn't walk back from. If the show stayed quiet, the truth disappeared. And Buck wasn't willing to let that happen, no matter what it cost him. After Buck refused to back down, the consequences came quietly. His screen time shrank. Meetings happened without him. Archived footage he requested was suddenly unavailable, then outright denied. When he hinted online that material had been removed, the posts vanished within hours, and his account was briefly locked for abnormal activity. No explanation followed. Soon after, Buck stepped away. Officially, it was personal time. In reality, the door had closed. Years later, Buck rarely speaks about Mountain Monsters. When he does, he avoids details. No creatures, no locations. He talks about patterns, about how fast truth disappears when it makes the wrong people uncomfortable. Fragments still surface now and then. A clipped frame, a mismatched line, a screenshot, only to be erased just as quickly. But the memory lingers. Buck once said, "The scariest thing we found wasn't in the woods. It was how easily everyone agreed to pretend it wasn't real." The show didn't end with a finale. It ended with silence. And somewhere between the missing footage and the edits that followed, Buck learned the truth. Some monsters don't chase you. They erase you. According to Jacob Buck Lowe, what happened behind the cameras was never meant to be part of a TV show. Footage disappeared. Investigations were quietly shut down, and certain locations were never spoken about again. Buck was known as the fearless rookie, the one willing to push forward when others hesitated. But as the seasons went on, viewers noticed something change. The jokes faded, the fear stopped looking playful, and the show itself began to feel heavier. Now, Buck has finally hinted at why. This isn't about monsters or myths. It's about patterns, erased evidence, and warnings that came from places no one expected. What he claims forces a disturbing question. Was Mountain Monsters documenting folklore, or stumbling into something real that couldn't be controlled? Before we go any further, subscribe, because once you hear what Buck says really happened, you'll understand why some stories never get a proper ending.